Morning everyone, I'll get started. So I'm going to be talking about our experience as a partner of Sitecore and how we've utilised Sitecore for one of our clients, who's Oxfam Great Britain, and the business impact that that's had for them. Very briefly about myself and my agency. So I'm from a agency called Computerlove. We're based in Manchester. My name's Giorgiou. I'm kind of one of the founders. I actually head up the UX team there, but I'm also involved in kind of initial platform strategy for our clients too. We're about 70 full-time people back in Manchester. We're a marketing and technology agency, but at our core we offer sort of predominantly design and build services, and that's across a number of kind of devices and platforms. But platform development is kind of one of the major offerings that we have, and hence our Sitecore relationship. We also look to ongoing to enhance the platforms we develop, so the ongoing optimization services, key thing of what we do. Should have changed the HMV slide. We no longer work with them, so we're not responsible for the demise. But we also kind of manage some of the ongoing search and media as well, so all the traffic driving as well, to be helping our platforms perform is kind of part of the peripheral services that we kind of offer too, as well as kind of running digital creative campaigns as well, all around driving traffic and awareness. So what am I going to talk today about though? It's about our relationship with Oxfam and Sitecore basically. So a bit of a background. We were appointed by Oxfam in 2010 and we were appointed as their digital agency, but to focus on their platforms. At the time they were kind of running a project called Scalable Web, in which they were kind of reviewing their whole digital and online portfolio and kind of looking to basically redevelop and reintegrate what they currently had. So our role in that was a complete kind of overhaul of the user experience. We spent a lot of time looking at the overall site architecture and content restructure. I'll talk about the scale of the site in a moment, why it was quite an important part of the process. There was also a complete redesign and realigning of the brand, and all that was kind of fully validated with user testing throughout the process as well. And then the other huge part of that was the core of everything was their core CMS platform, which was Sitecore. And as I talk about later, that was one of the major components of the project, because that kind of basically glued everything that they were doing together. Okay, what was the challenge of Oxfam? Why is Oxfam important actually, and notable for kind of discussion? The first thing I guess is the diversity of their audiences. So as an organisation, Oxfam, obviously they do fundraising and they're after raising money for various appeals. They've got a huge shopping audience. I'll talk about that later. They run all the various sports events and the running events, all the different kind of community fundraising that they do. They also run kind of music events. They're quite active with festivals and the whole volunteering movement, and then campaigning and lobbying is a huge part of what they do. So there's very, very broad audiences, as well as kind of some of their professional audiences, the teachers, researchers, and sort of policy and practice workers as well. So their web presence kind of covers quite a lot of different audiences with different needs. The existing web presence, the point at which we started, was huge. Oxfam, like many organisations actually, were doing a lot right. They were using digital as much as they could. They were kind of using it across all the different areas of the organisation, and kind of using social channels, using e-commerce, using all the elements. So there was a lot that they were doing correctly. But I suppose down to the scale of the organisation, they were kind of very much siloed, and so everything was kind of happening in discrete pockets across what is a very large organisation, and as such everyone was kind of developing their own parts of the site, and this has kind of grown organically without any kind of centralised structure and without necessarily any kind of joined up strategy, and so that as well kind of meant that a huge part of the project was a cultural shift, and the part about organisational change is actually a bit of a shift in kind of mindset and in kind of working processes of how actually as an organisation everything could be tied together and kind of follow kind of I guess a joined up strategy across the whole organisation. So what were our objectives for the project then? Well, from a supporter perspective, we were aiming to kind of motivate and inspire kind of our visitors and audiences to do more, to be engaged more with Oxfam, to donate, to interact, to engage, and to kind of support their ongoing work. A huge part of this obviously was kind of the unification of all their platforms and technologies, and this would bring one of the goals is to bring operational efficiencies as well to that process, to their day-to-day working. And then of course in all of the user experience and user-centered work that we've done, we're kind of looking to increase conversions through the shops and the donations and even the actions, etc. And so yeah, kind of running in parallel to that is also kind of increasing kind of audience engagement and people's interaction experience of Oxfam as an organisation. So at the heart of the project really and the programme was there's kind of three core principles. So the first was we followed a user-centered design approach. So I'm not going to talk into too much detail about that today, but basically this was kind of how we approached it, engaging end users, going through requirements and user testing, kind of user input and feedback throughout. A really important part was the development process. So it's not just limited to the development. We actually ran the whole program kind of using kind of agile principles, and we used the Scrum framework. Now, this was really important because what this brought to the organisation was, I guess, was some routine and rigour and how they were dealing with requirements. So cataloguing requirements, prioritising kind of what those requirements were, and then developing a roadmap actually by which we ran the initial development and releases. But then this routine of sprints and releases is something that's continued in transition to kind of the business as usual kind of phase, and ongoing is kind of how the whole organisation kind of manages the future development and roadmap. So that's kind of one of the key changes that kind of actually happened. And then the third and really, really important one was actually the platforms and the technologies that we brought together and how we've sort of integrated that. So that's a bit of the background of the project. So what I'm going to focus on now, I'm going to talk about actually what we've developed and kind of what the Sitecore platform has provided. So it's made up of many elements. In total, when we look at what we replaced, there was at the last tally there was approximately 20,000 hand-built HTML pages. And so when we look at kind of what we were replacing, a lot of that was hand-developed probably over about 7 or 8 years or so. We also replaced kind of an e-commerce shop which was built on MS Commerce. There was a handful of bespoke PHP applications. There was some .NET applications that were running the various fundraising campaigns. And then there was kind of WordPress blogs that we kind of used across all the organisation for managing kind of various news. So there was a hell of a lot, and in total I think we counted as well there was about 80 different sites and sub-sites. So bringing all that together and kind of rationalising, and to be honest we slashed so much of that. Part of the UCD process was actually to kind of rationalise some of the content and really just focus on what was really of value. So where we have got, we've cut down that tremendously, but there's still quite a lot in the kind of digital estate still. So the main supporter site is kind of one of the main areas. We replaced kind of the whole blogging engine, and so that's kind of all integrated throughout the site now. The online shop is a key part of it, and again we've integrated the Microsoft Commerce engine within Sitecore. The policy and practice for one of the specialist audiences, we've kind of got dedicated sites for that now. And for the educational audience, there's kind of a teachers-focused sub-site as well, which kind of deals with kind of all their requirements and needs. With a handful of the community fundraising platforms, which we deliver through these kind of annual dedicated sites as well. We'll talk about them. And then, of course, there's kind of the mobile and tablet offering as well. So that's just a selection of kind of what the sort of the online estate has kind of been cut back to. and all that, the key point is all of that is managed through the one Sitecore CMS instance. So in a very simple way, and all managed through permissions and roles, and through the standard Sitecore kind of offering, we're able to kind of delegate control across the organisation through the one CMS instance, really. And through that, they have the benefit of kind of the shared components, shared content, and shared functionality, which I'll talk about a bit more. So we'll talk about the integrated technology. So I'm quite keen to kind of stress this, because actually there was a lot of new technology that was introduced, but there was a lot of things that actually the most efficient way was to kind of reuse what was already there. But I guess our approach was to kind of integrate that within the one instance, and have these as all managed within kind of the one platform. So I suppose the things of note are MS Commerce. So the shop that I'll talk about later, kind of across the whole country, or the individual physical stores use that MS Commerce for managing the product catalogue. So it's important that they kept that. The CRM system is a Sense CRM. We did a massive integration with that, and that actually powers a lot of the My Account, so people can kind of find out what their donation history has been, change direct debits, see their purchase history, look at what events they've taken part in. So there's a lot of scope through that integration. Some of the big areas were with the Adestro, their email marketing platform. So all the emails are kind of sent through that. They're kind of also but managed through Sitecore. A huge part is integration with the Adobe Search and Promote engine. So this kind of manages the shop, manages the product searching, as well as the general site searching. I'll talk about that. And then the other big area was Telligent. So a huge part in trying to engage kind of audiences more, and encourage their audiences to interact. Telligent is a social platform, and that has excellent integration with Sitecore, and I'll talk about that. So what I'm going to do for the next 20 minutes, I'm just going to run through kind of what some key points really of part of the implementation, the things that we've put together that I think have kind of made the most impact for Oxfam, and kind of the most notable kind of parts of the process. So the first one really is about use of layouts and components. So I'm assuming most people here are using a content management system, are very familiar with their templating system, and so Sitecore kind of works in a very, very similar way, and we create a number of templates by which the content editors can create all their content. The big change for Oxfam, though, I suppose they've moved from a position where they have a team of, I think, about 10 content editors who are more web developers, so we're hand designing and building pages. So they've had this amazing kind of diversity and kind of creative freedom in kind of what they've produced. So going from that to a very templated approach was kind of a real area of concern. One of the massive benefits of Sitecore, though, it kind of works, in its core works with a component system, and so we try to make the most of that componenting system. We've kind of pushed that to kind of the limits of kind of how it was designed to work, but to kind of great effect. And it's, as I'll show in a second, it's kind of given Oxfam where they want it, that real kind of flexibility, but with the real benefit of kind of reuse of functionality and content, and all the benefits that the CMS can provide. So in some instances we've produced very fixed templates, in others they're kind of very flexible and use this componenting system. The component system can work because of something called the Sitecore page editor. So the page editor is a way by which a content editor can basically visually construct a page. And so if you're probably familiar with kind of sort of WYSIWYG page editing, what this also lets you do, though, it lets you kind of add components and reorganize and lay out components within the page. And one of the core principles, which is very important to when I talk about mobile later, is that the components that we've created are kind of flexible to the different content spaces that you put them in. So this has kind of helped when we look at kind of the responsive approach to sort of mobile and tablet devices. So to make these layouts work, one of the things that we developed was this concept of sub-layout. So we created components that could give them, within their core layouts, give them different sub-layouts. So the benefit of that was that they're almost able to create almost an infinite number of kind of different styles and layouts and combinations of of screens there. So that was kind of one of the big wins for them. It maintained that kind of flexibility and creative control that their content team was kind of used to and was kind of expecting. With the components within there, so this is kind of just some snapshots of Sitecore's component selection. In total, we created about 100 reusable components. So these are things from galleries, from being able to create tab elements, from banners to images to kind of featured items. So there's a wide variety to content carousels. So all of these things can be kind of placed on page and kind of reused, and then the content behind them kind of reused across the site as well, and across the whole suite of sites. So these could work across all the microsites as well. So this was kind of a huge kind of win for them. And this is something that over time that will kind of grow and brings more functionality and kind of more scope to what they have. So I'll flick through just some of the pages. You can see how these have been brought together now. So from things like the home page to various category pages to kind of very campaign specific pages, and then different types. You can see kind of the different layouts, the different reusable components, things like the navigation as well as kind of the featured items, and then down to kind of some of the blogs. So a variety of kind of showing, even through to kind of the shop, how the similar components are pulled through and used on category pages in the shop. And then even down to the events, fundraising pages, the kind of the specialist sites that they could create, and again using kind of the theming as well as kind of an overlay on top of that. They can each have their own distinctive sub kind of brands as well. So it gives you a kind of a highlight of kind of how that's been used. The second important thing we're able to do, imagine for a global relief charity like Oxfam, being able to respond to an emergency when they happen is hugely important. And kind of one of the objectives was for us to be able to develop something that would allow them to kind of have an online presence within kind of hours, really, as opposed to days as it would kind of typically take. So this is kind of where we use within Sitecore. Again, we developed kind of an emergency settings kind of feature, so that anyone could turn the site on almost kind of with kind of a flick of a switch with in kind of emergency relief mode. And then we gave them all sorts of kind of flexibility about what that could do. So that could kind of change the footer, change the header, it could kind of change the overall theming of the site, and then they could kind of create content promotions throughout the site that were kind of just really driving awareness of this. So there's some kind of examples here. So we're going from the site in standard mode to when going into kind of the emergency mode. So the things like the persistent elements, as I said, throughout the site, like the donate, ask in the header, and then kind of general kind of colour theming throughout as well. And we kind of kept that control throughout the site, and so you can kind of see that there are some pages that are permanently in kind of emergency mode, and that kind of I guess that branding and theming kind of comes throughout. But again, we kind of gave control throughout that. I think you can see this is on some using kind of a branching feature of Sitecore. So the other thing that they could do when they were wanting to kind of quickly add a whole set of content, they could use a branching functionality which allows them to create a whole set of pages of which they just need to go in and change some of the content. But then all pages throughout the site, they can also kind of decide to what level those pages can be affected. So certain pages where actually perhaps it is just the header, or other pages where it can kind of take full effect. So we've also built in that full control of kind of how an emergency does filter throughout the site. The third massive area for Oxfam is kind of the improvements to kind of the online shop and the e-commerce, and the shop, is a huge revenue driver for Oxfam. So one of the great wins here was kind of how the shop was managed. Previously, there were the shop was very separate to kind of the main site. We, using kind of integration with MS Commerce, we pulled that integration through into the Sitecore interface, and then they're able to use all the the tools and the components and reusable stuff that we've had to create dedicated landing pages for product areas and create category and subcategory pages with all that flexibility, whilst kind of using the Sitecore engine to pull through the various products. So we can kind of see, as I kind of flick through to some, you can see how we've reused for kind of various category pages, reuse a lot of the content components, but then you can kind of see things like the products themselves that are being pulled through the commerce integration. So all of that is kind of, you know, all managed through the Sitecore interface, and you can kind of see here there's kind of an example of within the interface itself how the first and second tier of category pages are kind of managed within the interface, and they can edit and override the content within that, but then the products are kind of all dynamically then pulled through the integration that we've done. The other huge part of that was kind of the integration of the Adobe Search and Promote system as well, and that's kind of heavily used throughout, and you can see there's various instances here of kind of different product types, and it kind of has its intelligent kind of facets and filtering. So all the best practice e-commerce features that we're kind of able to use, again, all pulled through into the one interface through Sitecore, but then sort of presented as kind of one unified thing to the end user. The other part was the shops. Oxfam have about 700 sort of physical shops around the UK, and each of those shops, when people donate items to the shops use kind of a listing tool by which they're all placed onto the site as well. But again, I think they only put their kind of the premier items online, but there's still the donated items are about any one time anywhere up to about 150 donated items through the shop. So it gives you a sense of the scale of the online shop. It's quite a huge kind of offering. And again, the shops themselves, with integration with sort of Google for kind of searching and displaying of kind of shop locations, all got integrated directions and these types of things as well. And I suppose just to say that all that again is kind of managed through kind of the Sitecore interface. As part of our integration with the intelligent social platform, we're kind of looking to extend that, and each of the shops will have their own social space where they can manage their own local shop events and kind of have their own communities, which they've started to do as well. A huge part as well was sort of different devices. So starting with mobile, but that also extending kind of to tablet devices as well, and the different growing number of devices. This has been kind of a really important part of kind of what we've delivered as well. So there's often a debate, and many times I've been in discussions about what is the right approach for kind of mobile or sort of other kind of screen devices. Should it be dedicated? Should it be responsive? Should it be adaptive? And I get engaged in many kind of heated debates from many purists about kind of championing responsive. Seeing as I'm speaking today, I'm going to insert my opinion. The correct answer is adaptive, and I'll go to explain why that's the correct answer. So the approach that we've taken is that the whole site, bar the shop, which is the next phase, is kind of is responsive, adaptive, and is optimized for a mobile experience. So that the base principle is that every page is accessed by the same URL. So a lot of the core principles of kind of a responsive solution is kind of what we've followed through. All that content is available. But the adaptive solution that we've taken, actually, one of the big differences is that we've placed the editorial control that sometimes a developer may dictate in a responsive solution. We've placed that in the hands of the content editors, which is all manageable through Sitecore. Sitecore has two excellent features by which that's possible, and I'll go into that. So the same content hierarchy that you've kind of seen in some of the Sitecore screenshots, that same site structure is kind of how all the different devices are managed as well. So, and just to kind of give an example of this is kind of how some of the layout from the home page has kind of adapted itself kind of to the mobile, and kind of how we've brought in various other kind of mobile enhanced features as well that kind of just I guess optimise that kind of experience. So the two areas that which Sitecore handles sort of different devices, we've kind of seen within the page editor there's a concept of the layouts. We've talked about sort of the layout. So Sitecore lets you create any number of for a page, a number of different types of layouts. So one of those can be mobile layouts. Print layouts is another as well. So then lets you kind of control for any page what you want those layouts to display. And so one of the ways you can create custom layouts for mobile for those which pull the same content through for that page. The approach we took, though, because we've kind of really stretched kind of what we were doing with the components, we had that component flexibility, that would have been kind of much more of an admin task to manage those individually. So the other thing that we used then, which is one of the excellent features of Sitecore, it kind of has a feature called the DMS, and the DMS has a personalization engine within it. So that personalization engine basically gives you access to kind of various rules, and some of those rules are detecting devices. And so what we did, we started with a base responsive solution that every page, when first created by an editor, would be automatically optimized for mobile through kind of the responsive work we've done, but then all those pages can be overridden by a content editor and sort of adapted and different components selected to be optimized for kind of that different device. A good example here is that we've shown this there, for example, is kind of some of the rules editor in action. You can see the different parameters that a content editor can have access to, so they can even get down to specific devices should they want to, different OSs. This is kind of an example, for example, on the donate page, which is kind of a very, very key part in that journey. And so what we've used kind of that device detection to change what is kind of a desktop donate engine, which is kind of mouse sort of reactive, to something that's kind of just more touch. So again, that component we've changed from there to something that's better for touch on smaller screen devices as well. So that's one of the instances in which we've used that. I'll very quickly talk about the other parts that are important. Social and community I've kind of touched on already, and as part of our components we've created a handful of social components that again are used throughout the site. Some are in fixed areas within the footer, but others are kind of giving that content control to the editors throughout. And we use YouTube integration throughout the whole site for delivering all the video content. The other big area is community fundraising. You know, one of the massive parts of this CRM integration is once someone has signed up to kind of engage in any of the events, then they're automatically kind of assigned to the community for that event as well. And so that's where some of the CRM and the community platform integration has kind of come together. And so you can see that this is kind of where they can actually sort of interact, engage with kind of other participants in an event, and there's forums, blogs, and the different events, etc., etc. So again, just encouraging that kind of interaction and end user engagement. Implicit personalization, I'll be very quick because we've only just started to use this, but using the rules engine that we've seen that we're kind of using for the device detection and the adaptive responsive work, we can also kind of use to kind of tailor the content for different audiences. So, and again, Sitecore is brilliant, gives you kind of access to a whole host of parameters about an end user. One of the ones that we're using, for example, is we're using the GeoIP, and we're able to kind of detect and deliver kind of Welsh language content for the education audiences based on us kind of detecting their location. And we've used that in some kind of initial cases for things like data kind of content, so things around special offers and promotions around Christmas, so we can use the rules engine to kind of tailor that content. And there's some kind of examples there of kind of how components have been edited for Christmas, etc. The last point I'll just make then is on the speed of change. So the other big impact that this has had, and those of you that are kind of quite creatively sharp, you may have noticed there's been a mismatch of screenshots. At some point last year, probably June, July last year, globally Oxfam went through a rebrand, and again it was kind of just really a subtle realignment, but it was kind of a unification of their global affiliates, really, of their kind of their branding and the look and feel. So we implemented basically this new branding toolkit that we were kind of involved in. We had to implement that across the whole digital estate, and so this was a project that would have taken months or have not been possible with kind of their own platform, their old platforms and their old sites, but the fact that everything was was kind of managed through kind of the one code base. This was something that was done really in a matter of weeks, and so that kind of brought massive cost savings, and again was kind of one of the real champions of kind of the projects as well, that they're able to kind of make that kind of change, and that kind of flexibility you've seen throughout is kind of how we're also able to kind of use sort of branded microsites for kind of the tailored audiences and kind of the tailored sub-brands again within Oxfam as well. So this is kind of just to highlight as we kind of went from the old kind of branding to what is now known as kind of the global identity branding, and then kind of how that's kind of filtered across the shop and the different kind of specialist microsites as well. So that's it really. So just want to give you a kind of highlight of those. So just to end, has it made a difference? Yeah, Sitecore has kind of started to unify the organisation. So as far as how they work operationally and how they use digital and kind of what their kind of strategy and roadmaps are, the fact that that is centralised now actually means that they're all able to kind of benefit from the work that each of the different divisions do. And it's something that as we grow and extend the site, then the other parts of the organisation are kind of able to benefit from the work that others have also done. But it's also kind of one of the massive drivers was kind of the cost and efficiency. So that's been a huge tick. Been able to respond to kind of the global emergencies. It's great to say that there hasn't been one since we kind of done that work, but should there be, they are able to kind of to respond. And then the shop as well, kind of the flexibility and the I guess the ability to kind of be able to see shop content from across the country has kind of also been a kind of a great win. And then as well as just general improvements to kind of conversion throughout, there's some amazing statistics on some of the sign-ups and on some of the forms, some of the donations as well have been up in certain areas. A lot of that is very, I guess, is very emergency kind of dictated, but generally across, we've kind of hit targets of where we wanted to be with kind of general conversion, engagement sort of targets as well as I've kind of said throughout that a real win has kind of been that agile mindset and that kind of the development process has been kind of carried on, and they've adapted that and it's been taken into the whole organisation. It's kind of that kind of rigour and routine and strategy really to kind of how things are developed and rolled out is kind of carried on.